Welcome to Scoli Sleep Stories. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable, let the day soften around you, and settle in for a calm documentary made for curious minds. If these stories help you rest, learn, or simply enjoy a quieter part of the day, please consider liking this episode and subscribing to the channel. Now, when you are ready, let us begin. Chapter 1: The Airfield at Dusk. The road to the aerodrome is narrow and pale, bordered by hedges darkened with evening damp. Your carriage moves at an easy pace, its wheels making a soft, regular sound over the packed earth. Beyond the glass, the countryside seems familiar enough. There are low fields, scattered trees, the roofs of distant farm buildings, and a faint thread of smoke rising from a chimney. Nothing yet suggests that a vessel is waiting to carry you into the air. It is late in the year 1900, at the very edge of the Victorian age. Queen Victoria has reigned since 1837, through more than 6 decades of railways, steamships, telegraph wires, factories, photography, and electric light. Her reign will end with her death on the 22nd of January 1901. This mild evening, however, still belongs to the Victorian era and to a century in which inventions once thought impossible have begun to emerge from workshops and exhibition halls. Ahead, the road bends around a stand of poplars. A wooden sign comes into view beside an open gate. Experimental Aerial Navigation Station. Passengers and visitors to report at the office. The word experimental has been painted in smaller letters, but it is perhaps the most important word on the board. This is not an ordinary railway terminus, and the craft awaiting you is not a commonplace liner. Large passenger airships with private cabins, stewards, lounges, and carefully served meals do not yet belong to everyday Victorian life. Such vessels will belong more fully to the early decades of the coming century. Tonight's journey is an imagined possibility of the year 1900. The vessel is a remarkable prototype, built from ideas and machines that 19th century inventors have already shown can work, then furnished with a modest degree of comfort that their promoters might reasonably have hoped to provide. The carriage passes through the gate. At first, you see only the station buildings. A modest administrative office stands nearest the entrance, with amber light glowing behind its curtained windows. Beside it is a workshop of brick and timber. Its wide doors remain open, revealing benches, hanging tools, and the orderly gleam of brass fittings. A trace of machine oil mingles with the scent of damp grass and earth. Farther on are stores for rope and canvas, a fenced enclosure containing gas equipment, and a row of fuel drums beneath a lean-to roof. Weather instruments stand on a clear patch of ground. A cup-shaped anemometer turns slowly in the mild breeze. Above it, a windsock hangs at a gentle angle, while signal flags move in small, unhurried folds. Then the carriage rolls beyond the workshops, and the flying ground opens before you. The first thing you notice is not the airship itself, but the people. They are spread across the field in calm, well-practiced groups. Some wear dark work coats, others wear woolen jerseys and flat caps. Their boots have pressed broad paths into the wet grass. Several dozen men hold long handling lines, keeping each rope under light and even tension. Others wait beside broad coils of hemp, laid carefully upon canvas sheets. No one hurries. Commands pass quietly from one group to another. Hold as she lies. Easy on the forward line. 2 paces only. The voices are clear, but never sharp. Every instruction is repeated, acknowledged, and carried out. Near the ground, an airship's enormous size makes it awkward, despite its light loading. Even a mild breeze can press against the broad hull as easily as a hand presses against a curtain. Early airships therefore require many people to guide them from their sheds, turn them, steady them, and keep them properly aligned. In later years, the first passenger Zeppelin, LZ-7, will be photographed with a holding crew of about 100 people. That image will show just how much manpower a large airship can require when it is close to the Earth. Here, the handling party is somewhat smaller, yet still large enough to give the field an air of quiet ceremony. Only now does your gaze begin to follow the ropes upward. They rise through the dusk at different angles, disappearing for a moment against the dim sky. Beyond them stands the long station shed, an immense structure of timber ribs and corrugated metal. Its open doors form a dark rectangular frame. Emerging from that frame little by little is the airship. At first it resembles a bank of pale cloud caught close to the earth. Then your eyes adjust to its scale. The hull stretches along much of the field, slender at the nose, widening through the middle, and tapering again toward the tail. Its outer fabric has been drawn taut over an internal framework. The surface is smooth, though faintly patterned by the structure beneath. The final amber light of evening rests along its upper curve. Lower down, warm electric lamps reveal a soft ivory gray. The ship is immense, yet it does not seem heavy. It appears patient and nearly still, held between the dark shelter of the shed and the open evening sky. Below the hull hangs a narrow passenger car of varnished timber and light metal. Its windows shine warmly. Farther aft are the engine positions and propellers, quiet for the moment. Somewhere within the machinery, a pump turns briefly and stops. A belt shifts against a wheel. There is a low mechanical murmur, not yet the full voice of the engines, only their promise. A station attendant opens the carriage door and sets down a small step. As you descend, the damp ground gives gently beneath your shoes. The air smells of grass, canvas, rope fiber, varnished timber, and a little fuel. Close by, a clerk carries a ledger from the office to a folding desk. Another man checks labels attached to traveling cases. Everything seems to have its appointed place. Inside the office, a frame display hangs beside the ticket window. It gives a brief history of powered aerial navigation, printed in careful black type. The first illustration shows Henry Giffard's airship of 1852, with its elongated hydrogen-filled envelope and small steam engine. On the 24th of September that year, Giffard traveled roughly 27 kilometers above France, though it lacked the power to make a controlled return against the wind. A second picture shows the French airship La France. Powered by electricity, it completed a circuit of 7.6 kilometers on the 9th of August, 1884, and returned to its starting point. That successful return demonstrated something important. A powered balloon could be made dirigible. The word dirigible simply means steerable. An ordinary free balloon travels largely where the wind carries it. A dirigible carries engines and steering surfaces, allowing its crew to choose a course within the limits of weather and machinery. The newest drawing is dated the 2nd of July, 1900. It shows Ferdinand von Zeppelin's first rigid airship, LZ-1, flying over Lake Constance. Unlike a craft whose shape depends mainly upon the pressure of the gas inside, a rigid airship keeps its form by means of an internal framework. Within that framework are separate cells containing the lifting gas. A note beneath the drawing explains that LZ-1 was built in a floating hangar. The hangar could turn upon the lake, allowing its doors to face more nearly into the wind before the craft emerged. Here at the land-based station, there is no such turning shed. Instead, signal flags, weather instruments, careful observation, and many steady hands help bring the vessel safely into the open. On a nearby table lies a promoter's brochure describing the ship outside. It speaks confidently of the future. It imagines aerial routes above rivers and mountains, swift passages between capitals, and peaceful journeys unhindered by railway embankments or winding roads. The language is grander than the quiet field beyond the window. An engineering drawing beside the brochure offers a more measured account. It shows the rigid framework, the gas cells held within it, the control surfaces at the tail, the engine positions, and the small passenger compartment. Pencil notes have been added in the margins. Some concern weight and balance, others concern ventilation, ropes, fuel, and the placement of stores. The vessel is not presented as a finished answer, but as a careful question. What might become possible if proven ideas were brought together in a single craft? What if the power of an engine, the lift of hydrogen, the strength of a light framework, and the refinements of a railway carriage could share the same long hull? Outside, another signal passes along the handling party. The lines tighten gently. Canvas moves with a soft, papery sound. A crewman bends to adjust a coil of rope, then lays it down again in an exact circle. Near the shed, two mechanics carry a wooden toolbox between them. Its varnished sides catch the lamplight. Your luggage has already been taken from the carriage. A porter fixes a neat label to the handle of your case and compares its number with an entry in his book. Your ticket rests inside one glove, its card slightly stiff beneath your fingers. Across the mooring field, The airship seems to gather the deepening dusk around itself. The hull holds the last amber light above, while its windows hold the first warm light below. The engines remain subdued, the ropes remain firm, the crew continue their measured work, each person attending to one small part of a very large undertaking. There is reassurance in this order. Every line has a purpose. Every tool has been placed where it may be found. Every signal is answered. From the weather instruments to the fuel stores, and from the gas equipment to the passenger steps, the station has been arranged around patience and preparation. The evening breeze passes over the flattened grass, the windsock shifts slightly, then becomes still again. Along the pale hull, the taut fabric gives a faint rustle. Beneath it, polished timber reflects the steady electric light. A steward approaches in a dark, well-cut coat. He checks your name against a small list, then inclines his head toward the waiting craft. At the base of the passenger car, a narrow stair has been set upon the grass. Its handrail is polished smooth, and a lamp above the entrance casts a warm circle over the lowest step. The steward accepts your ticket, glances at the luggage label, and returns the card to your gloved hand. Behind him, the station continues its quiet work. Ropes are held, instruments are watched, tools are returned to their places. Every person, every object, and every soft-spoken instruction seems to have a calm and certain purpose. When you are ready, the steward says in an unhurried voice, "We may go aboard." Chapter 2. Coming Aboard. The ticket rests neatly folded inside your leather wallet. Its paper is thick, its corners still crisp. Across its face are printed the name of the vessel, the place of departure, and the appointed hour of boarding. Beneath these details, in smaller type, appears a courteous reminder that luggage must be limited. Someone in the station office has added your name in dark ink, forming each letter with care. The steward stands beside the narrow stair while you return the ticket to its place. Behind him, the passenger car hangs beneath the immense envelope of the airship. From across the field, the car had seemed slender and almost delicate. Now, from only a few paces away, you can make out its practical details. There are shallow windows, a lightly framed door, metal brackets beneath the floor, and taut wires rising toward the structure above. This vessel is a hopeful, imagined development of late Victorian aeronautics, rather than an airship commonly seen in its time. The large passenger dirigibles of later years belong more fully to the early 20th century, yet many of their essential ideas are already being explored. Balloons have carried people aloft for generations. Engines are gradually becoming smaller and more dependable. Inventors study propellers, steering surfaces, lightweight frameworks, and carefully shaped gas envelopes. Here, those developing ideas have been brought together with unusual confidence. Before you climb the stair, one final formality remains. Beneath the station awning, a clerk sits at a small desk and opens a ruled ledger. Beside him stands a platform scale, broad enough for a traveler and a modest case. The procedure is handled quietly and discreetly. Your weight is entered in pencil, followed by the weight of your belongings. There is no judgment in the figures. Aboard an airship, weight is simply information, as ordinary and necessary as wind direction or the quantity of fuel. Everything must be counted. Passengers, crew, provisions, engines, and fuel all contribute to the burden carried beneath the lifting gas. So do the framework, the fabric covering, the ballast, the lamps, the seats, the tools, and every book or teacup brought aboard. Even when the airship has sufficient lift for the total weight, the distribution of that weight matters. Too much gathered near the bow or stern would make the vessel more difficult to keep level. For this reason, the heavy trunks of railway journeys and steamship voyages remain ashore. They may be sent onward by more ordinary means or left in the station's care. You bring only a small case with rounded corners, a woolen traveling rug, and the coat you are wearing. Inside the case are a book, a notebook, a comb, a few toiletries, a change of linen, and other personal necessities. A shawl lies folded across the top, where it can easily be reached. The clerk ties a label to the handle. It bears your name, your assigned place in the passenger car, and a number corresponding to the manifest. A small brass tag, polished smooth by many hands, is fastened beside it. The clerk adds another pencil mark to the ledger, checks the entry once more, and closes the cover. It is a modest ritual, yet a reassuring one. Nothing has been overlooked. Nothing will be carried aboard without a place prepared for it. You return to the foot of the stair. Actual early airships were often entered by ladders, short steps, or whatever simple arrangement best suited the field. There is no broad ocean liner gangway here, no sweeping staircase, and no crowded promenade. Instead, a narrow movable stair rises only a short distance from the grass to the door of the suspended car. The steward takes your case. You place one gloved hand upon the rail. The polished surface feels cool through the leather. Each step has been fitted to give your sturdy shoes a secure footing. You climb slowly, one small movement at a time. The stair remains steady. Two members of the ground crew hold it in place, while another waits near the doorway, ready to offer a hand. At the top, you pause beneath the entrance lamp. It is electric and enclosed behind warm, pale glass. No candle, oil lamp, gas jet, or other naked flame would be suitable near a vessel lifted by hydrogen. The gas is held high above in separate cells within the envelope. But caution shapes every routine aboard. The steady electric glow illuminates the doorway and gives it a quiet, welcoming warmth. Then you step inside. Your first impression is not one of grandeur, but of thoughtful economy. The passenger car is compact, orderly, and carefully made. The passage is narrow enough for the sleeve of your wool coat to brush against a fabric-covered wall. Even so, the interior does not feel harsh or unfinished. Pale fabric panels soften the framework. Thin wood veneer lends warmth without the burden of solid boards. Narrow strips of darker wood frame the windows and doors. The inventor has permitted himself only a few decorative ambitions. One slim rail has the reddish-brown appearance of mahogany, and a cabinet latch bears a tiny mother-of-pearl inset. Such details are not typical of any documented Victorian passenger airship. In 1910, the passenger gondola of the German airship LZ-7 would make use of mahogany and mother-of-pearl. Here they appear only as restrained ornaments, expressing the fictional inventor's hope that air travel might one day be not merely possible, but civil and comfortable. Most of the furnishings are deliberately light. The seats are made of wicker and cane, with thin cushions secured by tapes. A folding table rests flat against one wall. Small fabric pockets hold writing paper and useful notices. The fittings are narrow, the handles are light, and the cabinets are no deeper than they need to be. There are no broad bedrooms, heavy wardrobes, baths, or private salons. Such features belong more naturally to ships of the sea, where weight is supported by water. An airship must lift every object by displacing the surrounding air. Its comforts must therefore be chosen with restraint. Along one side of the car are several very small compartments, each scarcely wider than its berth. Curtains may be drawn across their entrances, offering a little privacy without the weight of solid doors and walls. Other narrow berths fold against the sides when not in use. Hooks have been provided for hats and coats, although passengers are advised to keep their warm layers close at hand. Even during the calm season, an early gondola can become chilly. The upper air is often cooler, and lightweight walls provide less insulation than the thick sides of a railway carriage. Warm traveling clothes are therefore sensible rather than ornamental. The passengers have dressed accordingly. One gentleman wears a dark wool suit beneath a long coat. His soft felt hat rests upon his knee. A woman settles a knitted shawl around her shoulders, then smooths her gloves before placing them in a fabric pocket. Another traveler wears a practical skirt of heavy cloth, sturdy buttoned shoes, and a coat with a high collar. The colors are subdued. Charcoal, brown, dark green, and muted blue seem well suited to the quiet evening. No one has dressed for a ballroom. These are clothes for changing temperatures, narrow steps, and a journey in which usefulness becomes its own kind of elegance. The steward carries your case to the place named on its label. Your seat stands beside a window, with a cane back and gently curved armrests. Beneath it is a shallow storage space crossed by a webbing strap. He slides the case inside, draws the strap over it, and fastens the buckle. Your traveling rug is rolled and placed in a net along the opposite wall, where its weight is balanced by other belongings nearby. The steward does not pile the luggage wherever space happens to remain. Each case has been assigned a position along the car. One is secured beneath a forward seat, another near the center, and a third at a measured distance toward the rear. Their arrangement forms a careful pattern. Every object serves both its owner and the balance of the vessel. You remove your hat and place it upon the hook beside you. Your coat may remain on for now. The air inside the car is mild, but the warmth of the field may fade once the vessel begins to move. The wool feels reassuring across your shoulders. From your seat, the station appears in the window like a small, neatly framed picture. You can see the edge of the awning, the orderly line of the ground crew, and the grass darkening beneath the evening sky. The airship's great envelope cannot be seen in full from here. When you lean slightly toward the glass, only a pale curve is visible, immense and quiet overhead. Other passengers come aboard in the same measured fashion. A ticket is presented. A name is marked upon the passenger list. A small case is weighed and labeled. A gloved hand closes around the cool rail. Wool coats brush softly against the passage wall, and each traveler is shown to a place already prepared. There is no need to hurry. The craft remains secured by its mooring lines, while the crew continue their duties without wasted movement. Outside, ropes are held and instruments watched. Inside, hats are placed upon hooks, shawls are unfolded, and cases disappear beneath the seats. When everyone is aboard, the steward walks the length of the passenger car. He tests a window catch, folds away the small boarding step at the entrance, and closes the lightweight door. It meets the frame with a soft, definite click. He checks the overhead nets, then bends to examine each strap beneath the seats. One buckle is tightened. A rug is shifted by the width of a hand. A small case near the rear is moved to a marked space closer to the center. None of these adjustments is dramatic. Each is simply part of the same patient attention that has guided the evening from the station office to your seat. At last, the steward consults the passenger list and adds a final pencil stroke. Around you, the warm electric lamps remain steady. The fittings give an occasional quiet murmur as the weight settles through the suspended car. Beyond the thin walls, the engines are still subdued, and the mooring ropes remain firm. Your small case rests securely beneath you, one modest part of a carefully arranged whole. Its position matters, just as the positions of the provisions, fuel, crew, ballast, and every other burden matter. In an airship, everything has its place, and every place is part of a greater harmony. Balance is not merely an abstract calculation hidden in an engineer's book. It is present in the placement of a shawl, the fastening of a strap, and the steward's final touch upon a luggage net. Now everyone is settled. Every small item has found its proper place. The close, orderly passenger car feels gently protective, suspended beneath the vast pale shape above. And with the luggage secured and the final mark entered upon the manifest, attention may turn from the weight carried within the car to the greater question beyond it. How can such an immense vessel rise so quietly from the earth? Chapter 3. How the Airship Rises. The answer begins above you, within the long pale hull whose curved underside fills the view from the windows of the passenger car. From the field, the airship appeared to be one immense silver-gray vessel, smooth from its rounded bow to the narrowing fins at its stern. Yet beneath that outer covering lies a more intricate structure. Light metal rings and lengthwise girders are carefully joined so that strength may be gained without unnecessary weight. This is a rigid airship, an imagined refinement of the experiments being undertaken near the close of the Victorian age. Vessels of such size and comfort will belong more fully to the decades ahead, but their essential principles are already being explored. Engineers understand that a lightweight framework can hold a steady form, and that several separate gas cells within it can provide lift. Around the frame, a smooth fabric cover gives the vessel its clean, streamlined shape. The outer fabric is not itself the gas bag. It is better to think of it as a light coat drawn neatly over the structure beneath. Inside are the individual cells that contain hydrogen. They fill much of the hull, each resting within its allotted space. The lifting gas is divided among these separate cells rather than being held within the outer cover. Below the framework hang the cars and gondolas. One contains the passengers with their modest cabins and parlor. Others provide places for engines, controls, crew, stores, and equipment. Slender supports and carefully tensioned wires carry their weight into the structure above. Every part belongs to the same balanced whole. As you sit beneath the steady electric lamps, you may imagine the air outside pressing gently against every surface. Air seems almost weightless to the senses, yet a large volume of it has considerable weight. The airship rises because the hydrogen inside its cells is much lighter than the surrounding air it displaces. The principle is called buoyancy. It is rather like a boat floating upon water. A boat remains at the surface because its hull displaces water that would weigh more than the boat itself. Here the airship floats not in water, but in the atmosphere. The hydrogen occupies a great volume while weighing far less than an equal volume of ordinary air. That difference provides the lifting force. Hydrogen is the practical lifting gas available to European aeronauts in this period. Helium, which will later be valued because it does not burn, is not yet readily available for this kind of service. Hydrogen also provides slightly more lift than helium. Because hydrogen is flammable, strict precautions are observed throughout the ship. No candle brightens the parlor, no oil lamp swings in the corridor, and no match is casually struck. The warm lamps above you are electric, with insulated wires and carefully maintained fittings. Fire precautions are treated not as a cause for alarm, but as part of the vessel's orderly discipline, much like securing luggage, checking a valve, or entering a figure in the logbook. Hydrogen alone does not decide whether the ship can rise. The crew must consider the weight of everything carried aloft. This includes the metal frame and outer fabric, the gas cells and their hydrogen, the engines and fuel, the passenger and machinery cars, the officers, engineers, stewards, and passengers. Luggage, provisions, water, instruments, spare parts, and ballast must also be counted. Even the paper in the writing desk and the cups arranged in the pantry belong in their small way to the total. This is why your case was placed with such care. Lift and weight must be compared, but balance must also be considered. Too much weight at the bow would lower the nose, too much at the stern would lower the tail. A well-trimmed airship rests nearly level, neither pulling hard against its mooring lines nor settling heavily toward the ground. Along the keel is a small trimming carriage, inspired by experiments with movable weights in early rigid airships. A weight upon this carriage may be shifted a short distance forward or aft, helping the officers make fine adjustments to the vessel's pitch. It is useful, though it is not the main means of steering. Like the careful placement of luggage, it helps the ship begin its journey in quiet balance. Outside, the final calculations have been completed. The airship has been trimmed slightly light. This does not mean that it will spring upward like a released toy balloon. It means only that, when the ground crew eases its restraint, the vessel will have a gentle tendency to rise. Through the window, you see men stationed across the field, each holding a line. Their coats form dark, orderly shapes against the grass. A signal is given from the control car. It passes quietly from one station to the next. One by one, the ground lines become slack. The change beneath your feet is so slight that, at first, it might be mistaken for a shift in posture. The fittings give a low murmur. A cup in its holder trembles once, and then becomes still. Beyond the glass, the grass appears to settle a little farther away. The ship has left the earth by only a few feet. There is no leap, and no sudden climbing. The immense hull loosens itself from the field with measured patience. The ground crew continues to guide the remaining lines, keeping the bow properly aligned while the officers watch their instruments. At another signal, the final ropes are released. They fall into waiting hands below and are drawn safely clear. Now the engines take up their work. Their sound reaches the passenger car as a muted, even vibration. In the engine gondolas, turning shafts carry power to the propellers. The long blades press air backward, and the answering force draws the ship forward. Propellers provide thrust, which is the forward pull through the atmosphere. They do not provide buoyancy. The hydrogen lifts. The propellers carry the vessel onward. This distinction is what makes an airship different from an ordinary free balloon. A balloon may rise and descend, but its horizontal journey is largely governed by the wind. An airship has engines, propellers, and steering surfaces, so it can be directed along a chosen course. The older word dirigible simply means steerable or directable. As forward motion gathers, the broad surfaces at the tail become effective. Vertical rudders turn the airship's nose to the left or right, much as a rudder guides a ship through water. Horizontal surfaces, called elevators, alter the pitch. They can raise or lower the nose, especially when the vessel is moving steadily through the air. The officer at the controls makes only small corrections. The elevators take a slight angle, and the bow inclines gently upward. Because the ship is already almost balanced, no forceful movement is needed. It proceeds forward and rises at the same time, following a long, shallow path into the evening air. Ballast offers another means of adjusting lift. The ship carries measured stores of sand or water, which may be released if it becomes necessary to make the vessel lighter. Dropping ballast helps an airship rise. It can also check a descent that has become greater than intended. It does not make the ship descend. This simple point is carefully understood by every officer aboard. To encourage a descent, the crew may retain or add weight when practical. They may reduce the additional lift produced by forward movement, adjust the vessel's pitch, or alter engine power. If necessary, a small amount of hydrogen may be released through the proper valves, reducing buoyancy. Yet venting hydrogen cannot be undone during the voyage, so it is never treated as casual or routine. Gas and ballast are both valuable. Skilled flight depends upon preserving them, and upon making fine adjustments through balance, steering, and engine control whenever possible. The vessel continues to climb with an almost thoughtful steadiness. The people on the field no longer stand against the horizon. Now they are seen below it. The mooring shed reveals its entire roof, followed by the paths around it. One line of hedges joins another at a neat angle. A farmhouse, partly hidden when viewed from the ground, appears beyond a stand of trees. Gradually, the countryside arranges itself into a map. Roads become pale threads. Fields lie together in green and brown parcels. A narrow stream catches the last light and carries it through the darkening land. The airship's shadow, faint and elongated, passes quietly across the grass before dissolving among the hedgerows. Inside, the electric lamps remain warm and steady. The engine vibration has settled into a low, continuous hum. Above the ceiling, hydrogen provides the lift. Behind you, the propellers provide thrust. At the tail, rudders and elevators guide the course. Throughout the vessel, the careful distribution of fuel, stores, luggage, ballast, and people maintains the trim. Gas lifts, engines carry the ship forward. Steering surfaces guide it. Patient attention keeps the whole craft balanced. With these principles working together, flight feels less like a defiance of nature than a thoughtful use of it. The airship rises because air has weight. It moves because the propellers press upon that air, and it turns because broad steering surfaces meet the passing current at a chosen angle. Nothing needs to be hurried. Each force is modest, but the vessel has been designed so that modest forces may act upon it steadily. The great hull is neither racing upward nor struggling against the sky. It is nearly balanced within the surrounding atmosphere. Buoyancy supports its weight, while the engines and control surfaces give direction to its movement. The result is not a leap from the earth, but a gradual release from it. Far below, the ground crew gathers the ropes and begins walking back across the field. Their figures have become small, though their careful work remains part of the smooth departure. The mooring ground slowly recedes, and the last lines are coiled and carried away. Here aboard, other figures remain awake at their stations. An officer stands before the controls. A navigator waits beside his chart. Engineers listen to the measured rhythm of the machinery, while stewards attend to the quiet passenger rooms. The principles of flight are simple enough to name, yet it is the calm work of these people, continued from watch to watch, that turns lift, thrust, steering, and balance into a dependable voyage. Chapter 4. The Crew and Their Watches. The measured pulse of the engines continues beneath the floor, steady enough to become part of the airship's atmosphere. Around you, the passenger rooms seem almost still. A shaded electric lamp casts warm light across polished wood and brass fittings. Curtains hang quietly beside the windows, stirring only when someone opens a door. Yet beyond these comfortable rooms, throughout the long structure of the craft, a circle of attentive work continues. The airship does not remain upon its course by itself. Its apparent ease is created by people who observe, communicate, and make small adjustments before larger ones are required. Each person has an appointed task, and no one is expected to manage the whole vessel alone. Safe flight depends upon orderly specialization, shared knowledge, and the calm passing of information from one station to another. At the forward end of the passenger accommodation, a short passage leads toward the control car. Passengers do not wander freely into this working space, but through an open doorway you may glimpse something of its quiet order. Paper maps lie flat beneath clips. A compass rests in a brass housing, and mechanical indicators bear neat black lettering. Warm shaded lamps illuminate the instruments, without dazzling the eyes of those who must also look outward into the gathering dusk. The airship commander stands near the broad forward windows. He is a reserved man in a dark coat, neither stiff nor severe. His manner suggests that he has learned to speak only as loudly as necessary. He watches the landscape, listens to reports, and considers the vessel as a whole. The commander does not personally turn every wheel, consult every gauge, or inspect every cable. His responsibility is broader. He receives information from the navigator, the helmsman, and the engineers. He weighs each report and decides how their separate tasks should work together. Command aboard an airship, as aboard a ship at sea, depends less upon constant motion than upon patience, attention, and calm judgment. Beside him, the navigator bends over a chart. A straight edge lies across the paper, and a finely sharpened pencil rests between his fingers. The map shows rivers, railway lines, towns, and hills, each represented by a symbol or a careful contour. He compares these marks with the country visible below, then checks them against the airship's compass course. From time to time, he makes a small notation in the logbook. The pencil passes softly across a ruled page. First comes the time, copied from a brass clock whose hands move almost silently. Then the estimated position, compass course, and height of the airship. The navigator may also record the wind, the cloud cover, the engine setting, the amount of fuel and ballast remaining, and any observation that might prove useful later. A logbook is both a memory and a conversation. It preserves details that no person could hold precisely through every hour of a long journey. It also speaks to the crew who will take the next watch. They can open it and see where the airship has been, how the machinery has behaved, and what conditions have surrounded it. The navigator looks, notes, listens, and records. At the steering position sits the rudder helmsman. The broad rudders at the rear of the airship guide its movement to the left or right. When the commander gives a new course, the order is repeated in a low, clear voice. The helmsman turns his wheel by a measured amount, then watches the compass settle toward the requested direction. Course east by north, comes the quiet instruction. East by north, the helmsman repeats. The repetition confirms that the words have been heard correctly. In a working craft, especially one accompanied by the regular pulse of engines, such simple customs help to prevent confusion. A spoken order is received, repeated, carried out, and observed. A second station is assigned to the elevator helmsman. The elevators are horizontal steering surfaces that help to control pitch, the angle at which the airship's bow points upward or downward. By adjusting them, the helmsman assists the vessel in climbing, descending, or holding an even attitude. On some later large airships, horizontal and vertical steering would be divided between separate crew members. The imagined Victorian company operating this craft has adopted the same maritime-style arrangement. One pair of hands attends to movement left and right, another attends to pitch and vertical control. Each helmsman can therefore concentrate upon a smaller, clearly defined set of motions. Their corrections are usually slight. A hand touches a wheel, a mechanical indicator shifts, the great vessel answers slowly, as one might expect from something so immense and light. Then the wheel eases toward its resting position, and the airship resumes its balanced progress. Look, note, listen, adjust, record. Farther aft, the chief engineer follows a similar rhythm among the machinery. He listens first. Familiar machines have familiar voices, and an engineer learns the character of each one. A change in vibration, a roughened pulse, or an unfamiliar tapping may reveal something before an instrument does. Tonight, the engines maintain their regular beat. The chief engineer examines their speed and temperature. He checks the supply of fuel and the flow of cooling water. Lubrication receives particular attention, for oil allows moving metal surfaces to pass one another with less friction. He considers the warmth of the bearings, which support the turning shafts, and observes the shafts that carry power toward the propellers. Nearby mechanics make their rounds. One wipes a gauge glass with a folded cloth before reading it. Another places a careful hand near a bearing housing, judging its warmth without touching any moving part. They inspect fittings, attend to oil cups, and notice the pattern of vibration beneath their boots. Their work is not a dramatic struggle with machinery. It is patient maintenance, checking what is already functioning and keeping it within proper limits. Engine speed, temperature, fuel, lubrication, cooling water, shaft motion, propeller performance, bearing warmth, and vibration are all considered in turn. Nothing need be hurried. Each observation is made carefully, and each result is passed onward. An engine setting may be sent from the control car by a mechanical indicator, an engine order control, or a discrete bell. This fictional craft uses a small arrangement of bells and pointers, supported by speaking tubes when a fuller message is required. These are features of this particular vessel, chosen by its imagined company to suit its own orderly routines. A bell sounds once. The engineer reads the order aloud, and a mechanic repeats it. The adjustment is made gradually. Soon the new setting is reported to the control car, where it can be entered in the log. The exchange is brief, but it joins distant parts of the airship into one coordinated whole. Elsewhere within the long hull, riggers and hull crew attend to the structure that holds everything together. The word rigger comes from the old practice of caring for ropes, cables, and supporting arrangements. Aboard this airship, the role includes much more. The crew inspects structural members, tensioned wires, fabric coverings, gas equipment, valves, control cables, and handling lines. There is no need for a rigger to spend an ordinary flight continually climbing along the outside of the hull. Most routine duties are quieter and more sheltered. A crew member moves carefully through an assigned passage, shines a shaded lamp upon a fitting, checks that a cable has its proper tension, and listens for anything unusual. One pauses beside a valve connection. Another examines the place where several slender members meet. A third checks a handling line that has been secured since departure. They know that a large structure is cared for through many small observations. The fabric should remain properly held. The wires should carry their expected tension. The control cable should move freely, and the gas equipment should show no sign of irregularity. Their footsteps are deliberate. Their quiet voices do not travel far. Here and there, brass fittings catch the warm, shaded light, while the regular engine pulse passes through the framework like a subdued and reassuring clock. Look, note, listen, adjust, record. These duties continue through a system of watches. A long voyage cannot depend upon one group remaining at its stations without relief. People require meals, quiet, and rest if their attention is to remain clear. The company has therefore arranged its own simple rotation. Early experimental aeronautics had no single watch system used everywhere, and different craft might follow different customs. Here, each essential station is handed from one qualified crew member to another at appointed times. As the brass clock approaches the change of watch, soft footsteps come along the passage. The arriving crew speak briefly with those they are relieving. The course is repeated, the height is confirmed, the engine setting is stated clearly, recent observations are mentioned, and the logbook remains open at the latest page. There is no ceremony beyond this exchange, but there is courtesy in it. Height holding evenly, engines running at the present setting, light cloud ahead, with clear air beyond. The incoming watch examines the instruments rather than merely accepting the words. The outgoing watch does not hurry away until each station has been properly transferred. One navigator looks over the marks made by another. One helmsman settles his hands at the wheel as the previous helmsman steps aside. In the engine spaces, a mechanic listens for a few moments to the familiar rhythm before his companion leaves to rest. Responsibility passes gently, like a lamp handed from one careful person to another. Those who have completed their watch move away with the same quietness. Their work is done for the moment, and rest is now part of their duty. Later, refreshed, they will return. In this way, attention is renewed from hour to hour. Essential stations remain attended, while no single person is asked to remain wakeful beyond reasonable limits. In the passenger quarters, a steward performs duties of a different kind, though with the same steady care. He checks that a door is latched, straightens a folded wool rug, and makes certain that the shaded electric lamps are burning at a comfortable level. He knows which passenger has asked for writing paper, which would prefer a cup of water, and which wishes simply to sit undisturbed beside the window. He also carries messages between the cabin and the working spaces when needed. A short report may travel through a speaking tube or by a messenger. A request from the saloon may be carried forward in person. The steward moves easily between these different parts of life aboard the airship, never intruding and never seeming hurried. His practicality links the passenger world with the crew's world. To those in the saloon, the voyage may appear to be composed of windows, armchairs, lamplight, and slowly moving cloud. To those at the controls, it is formed from courses, heights, compass readings, engine settings, and timed entries. To the engineers, it has the language of fuel, cooling water, shafts, bearings, and vibration. To the riggers, it is a pattern of fabric, wires, valves, cables, and carefully maintained tension. The steward passes quietly among them all. After a brief visit to the control car, He returns along the passage. The engine pulse follows him, regular and subdued. Behind him, the navigator lowers his pencil to the ruled logbook once more. A brass clock marks the passing minutes. One of the helmsmen repeats a course in a low voice, and somewhere aft, a small indicator settles with a discreet click. The steward pauses beneath a brass fitting, then opens the saloon door. "All is proceeding well," he says. It is a modest report, offered in an easy voice. Yet behind it lies the work of the commander at the windows, the navigator over his paper maps, the two helmsmen at their separate wheels, the engineers beside the turning shafts, and the riggers among the fabric, wires, valves, and cables. It includes the pencil line in the logbook, the nearly silent clock, the soft footsteps at the watch change, the discreet bell, and the quiet voice repeating an order. You enter the shared saloon beneath its warm, shaded light. A few passengers have already taken their places beside the windows. Books, newspapers, and writing paper rest upon the tables. The polished wood glows softly, and the brass fittings hold a muted gleam. Beyond the glass, cloud stretches like a pale and level country. Here, above that quiet expanse, the comfort of the airship is supported by a wider circle of dependable work. Much of it remains unseen, yet all of it continues, steadily and reassuringly, from watch to watch. Chapter 5. A Parlor Above the Clouds. You choose a chair beside one of the broad windows, where the curved glass gathers the pale afternoon light. The cane frame is slender and carefully secured to the floor. It gives a faint dry creak as you settle, then becomes still beneath you. Across the narrow saloon, seats face inward around two small tables. A dozen unhurried steps would carry you from one end of the room to the other. The ceiling is low, the passage narrow, and every furnishing has been chosen with weight in mind. What appears to be dark polished wood is a thin decorative panel over a lighter structure. The curtains are spare, the upholstery neat rather than deep, and the tables are fastened securely in place. Nothing has been added without thought. Aboard an airship, every chair, book, cup, and curtain must be raised by the lifting gas above. Heavy oak cabinets and thick carpets might suit a country house, but they would burden a vessel whose useful load is carefully measured. This imagined parlor offers refinement through proportion rather than abundance. Brass edging, muted green seats, a strip of patterned cloth above the windows, and warm electric lamps shaded like familiar lamplight. There is no open flame. Their amber glow rests on polished panels, folded newspapers, and the hands of nearby passengers. Such a saloon belongs to a possible history, rather than ordinary Victorian air travel. Great passenger airships with lounges, writing rooms, promenades, maps, bookshelves, and long interior decks came later, chiefly in the 1920s and 1930s. Even early passenger Zeppelins of the new century offered comfort carefully, with wicker chairs, light fittings, large windows, lightweight finishes, small tables, and food service. Around 1900, one compact shared saloon is more believable than a palace among the clouds. There are no immense enclosed decks here, only a modest room within the gondola, thoughtfully arranged and gently lit. Compact though it is, it contains all the present hour. Chapter 6. Tea in the Upper Air. The steward measures the tea with the same quiet attention that the navigator gives to a line upon a chart. Nothing in the little saloon is hurried. Each cup is set into its saucer, and each saucer rests within a shallow cloth-lined recess in the table. The recess is hardly noticeable at first. It is merely a slight hollow, bordered by a polished wooden lip. Yet it keeps the china from wandering when the airship inclines a little, or when a passing current gently lifts one side of the passenger car. Napkins are unfolded and laid across knees. Small plates follow, their edges held by discreet brass clips that can be turned aside when the plate is needed. A silver spoon makes one muted note against china, then becomes still. Beneath these smaller sounds remains the low vibration of the vessel, steady and almost companionable. The airship is calm, but it is not motionless. No craft moving through the air could be entirely still. The engines send a fine tremor through the saloon floor, and the long hull responds softly to the surrounding currents. Now and then the tablecloth barely stirs. Tea shivers in a cup for an instant, forming a delicate ring against the china, before its surface smooths once more. Dining here is therefore a matter of small, sensible arrangements. A railway carriage has racks and latches because it rocks upon the rails. A steamship has raised edges around its shelves because it rises and settles with the sea. This vessel, too, has been furnished for movement. Cups fit into padded circles, cutlery lies in narrow slots, serving pots stand in deeper recesses, and their lids are checked before they leave the steward's cupboard. That cupboard serves as the airship's modest galley. It is not a kitchen in the usual Victorian sense. There is no coal range, no blue gas jet, and no spirit burner beneath a kettle. There are no candles or oil lamps anywhere aboard. The great envelope above contains hydrogen, the light gas that gives the ship much of its lift. Hydrogen is historically suited to a European airship of this imagined late Victorian period. It is also flammable, and so every source of ignition must be carefully controlled. These precautions are woven so thoroughly into the vessel's routines that they do not disturb the peaceful service. They simply shape it. Warm electric lamps shine behind protective glass. Their glow is steady and soft. Matches remain on the ground. The steward's cupboard holds food, crockery, folded linen, and covered vessels, but nothing with a naked flame. Most of the refreshments were prepared at the airfield before departure. Bread was sliced in a kitchen on the ground, where ordinary ovens and ranges could safely do their work. Cold meats were arranged beneath close-fitting covers. Cheese was wrapped in clean paper and placed inside a light tin, and fruit were packed into fitted compartments. In this way, the airship carries the finished comforts of a kitchen without carrying the kitchen's heavy equipment or its fire. The tea, too, was brewed shortly before the passengers came aboard. It traveled up the gangway in a closed urn, its lid secured and its handles wrapped so that it could be carried comfortably. A second vessel holds hot water. Both have insulated walls, designed to slow the escape of heat. The steward is rather proud of these vessels. He explains when asked that they are experimental. During the 1890s, inventors are developing containers with a space between their inner and outer walls. This slows the passage of warmth, allowing hot liquids to remain hot for longer, and cold liquids to remain cold. The familiar commercial thermos bottle belongs to a later time and has not yet become an ordinary household object. Here, the polished insulated vessel is an inventive novelty. It has been adapted for this particular voyage, and the crew watches its performance with quiet interest. When the steward releases the clasp and turns the lid, a pale breath of steam rises. For a moment, the teapot lid mists over. Then he pours, keeping one hand upon the pot and the other close to the cup. The stream is narrow and controlled, amber in the lamplight. The tea is black and fragrant. Beside it stands a little dish of thinly cut lemon peel. Milk is offered from a small covered jug, and sugar waits in a lidded bowl with a short pair of tongs. Everything has its place. Everything can be covered, clipped, or returned to a recess. You take the warm cup in cool hands. Heat passes gradually through the china and settles into your fingers. Beyond the window, the upper surfaces of the clouds retain a faint wash of evening light. The earth below is deepened into greens, browns, and quiet violet shadows. Nearer at hand, the tea carries the clean scent of leaves and lemon peel. The menu is restrained, as befits an experimental passenger craft whose designers must consider every pound carried aloft. There is fresh bread with butter, slices of mild cheese, cold ham, and small covered dishes of preserves. Apples and pears have been chosen because they travel well. A dark fruit cake is cut into modest pieces firm enough to remain neat upon the plate. In a later age, the great passenger Zeppelins would offer far more elaborate dining. From 1910 onward, vessels including LZ-7 and LZ-10 became associated with generous menus and carefully selected wines. Those airships belonged to the early 20th century, when rigid airship design had advanced beyond the plausible Victorian prototype carrying you now. Their passenger spaces could support a degree of luxury that would be out of place here. This earlier imagined vessel is lighter, smaller, and more cautious. Its comforts lie not in abundance but in care. Bread is kept fresh beneath a folded cloth. Fruit is polished before serving. Preserves are spooned into a small white dish. Tea is poured while it still holds the proper warmth. The simplicity suits the view outside. Nothing competes with the broad fields, the fading river, and the slow movement of cloud. A steward passes the bread. The basket is shallow and oval, with a cloth tucked around its contents so that nothing shifts. You take one slice, spread it with butter, and add a little preserve. Its sweetness is gentle after the strong tea. Around the saloon, conversation continues in low, unhurried voices. Someone remarks upon the remarkable steadiness of the cups. Another passenger looks beneath the edge of the table and discovers the small fastenings there. The steward demonstrates how the tabletop is secured and how the serving cabinet has latches at both top and bottom. Even its drawers require a thumb pressed against a spring before they can open. Such details are part of the airship's quiet discipline. Weight must be limited, yet whatever is carried must be reliable. Heavy dining furniture would be impractical. The chairs are therefore made from light wood, strengthened only where needed, and fixed to the floor by unobtrusive brackets. The plates are fine but not extravagant. The cutlery is simple. Serving dishes are modestly sized, so that no more food than necessary is brought from storage at one time. At the far end of the cupboard is a narrow cabinet warmed by electricity. It does not cook. It merely keeps covered dishes from cooling too quickly. Even this is a speculative luxury, a weight-conscious invention rather than a standard piece of airship equipment. Its heating element is enclosed, and its use is carefully supervised. A small indicator shows when current is passing through it. Once the dishes have been served, the steward switches it off. The vessel's electrical supply is modest, and there is no reason to waste it. Lamps, instruments, and essential signals have priority. The warming cabinet is used only briefly. Then it is allowed to cool, becoming an ordinary cupboard once more. You try the fruitcake. It is dense with raisins and currants, with a faint trace of spice. It needs no frosting, no delicate decoration, and no elaborate plate. It was made to travel well. A few crumbs settle upon the china and remain there despite the engine's fine vibration. Outside, a break in the cloud reveals a narrow river reflecting the last light. It curves between fields, then disappears beneath a layer of pale vapor. The airship tilts so gently that the change is noticed first in the tea. Its surface leans toward one edge of the cup, waits there, and slowly returns to level. No dish slides. The brass clips and polished lips perform their simple work. The steward moves from table to table, replenishing hot water and checking lids. His service is methodical. A cup is set down. Its handle is turned outward. The pot is returned to its recess. A spoon is slipped into its cloth-lined hollow, and the table covering is smoothed with one careful hand. The order of it is reassuring. Courtesy aboard the airship is closely joined to practical skill. Every graceful movement also serves a useful purpose. A covered dish preserves freshness and prevents its contents from shifting. A secured lid keeps the tea safely within the pot. A folded cloth quiets the china and protects it from the constant, delicate trembling of the vessel. For a little while, the saloon settles into the restful rhythm of the meal. Bread is passed. Tea is sipped. A spoon touches a cup with a subdued note. Outside, the evening gathers over fields and scattered towns. Inside, the electric lamps cast their warm glow across polished wood and pale china. The low engine pulse remains beneath it all. After a time, it becomes so familiar that you no longer listen for it. It is simply part of the room, like the faint creak of a chair or the whisper of cloth when a napkin is folded. As the meal draws toward its end, the remains are covered before they are carried away. Fruit returns to a padded drawer. Cheese is wrapped again and placed in its tin. The breadbasket is covered with its cloth. Each container is closed, checked, and fitted into its appointed space. Used plates are set upright in cloth-lined racks, each separated from the next. Cups fit into round compartments, and spoons slide into narrow loops. There will be no washing with large basins of water while the ship is in flight. Water is useful weight, and it is carefully conserved. The china can be cleaned properly after arrival. The last tea is poured. A slender curl of steam rises and vanishes into the saloon air. You hold the cup a little longer, feeling its warmth while the landscape darkens beyond the glass. The lamps now seem brighter, although no one has adjusted them. Their electric glow rests upon the polished wood, the folded napkins, and the brass edges of the secure little tables. The dark tea carries a final hint of lemon peel. The cup warms your palms. For a few quiet moments, There is nothing to do but sit comfortably and watch the clouds pass below. Soon the steward collects the final saucers. A spoon gives one soft note as it is placed into its rack. Cabinet doors close, clasps are pressed. The service cloth is folded along its familiar creases. One by one, the small signs of the meal are put away. The saloon returns to its earlier simplicity, though the fragrance of black tea, warm bread, and fruitcake remains. A faint sweetness lingers near the covered dishes. The warm lamps continue to shine, never flickering like candles but holding their calm and even light behind the glass. With the smaller sounds of dining gone, another sound becomes clearer beneath the floor. It is the patient, regular pulse that has accompanied the airship all along. The vibration travels through the framework in a measured rhythm, softened by distance and by the padded fittings of the passenger car. This steady pulse comes from the engines, turning the propellers that guide the vessel onward through the cool upper air. They are housed apart from the saloon and tended by engineers whose watch continues while the cups are secured and the last cloth is put away. You rest one hand lightly against the arm of the chair and feel the faint vibration within the wood. It is neither harsh nor hurried. It is a quiet reminder of the machinery working beyond the polished panels, attended with the same methodical care that governed the serving of tea. The last cupboard latch settles into place. The steward looks once around the saloon, making certain that every cup, plate, lid, and drawer is secure. Then he steps softly away. Outside, cloud drifts through the deepening evening. Inside, the warmth of the cup remains in your hands. And beneath the calm parlor, at a respectful distance, the quiet machinery carries everyone steadily onward. Chapter 7: The Quiet Machinery. With the final cups returned to their cabinet, and the last folded cloth carried away, the saloon grows simple once more. The fragrance of tea and lemon peel lingers faintly in the warm air. Lamplight rests upon polished wood, brass catches, and the dark wool of the seats. Beneath these smaller comforts, another presence becomes easier to notice. A deep, repetitive pulse passes gently through the floor. It has been there throughout the journey, steady beneath conversation and the soft sounds of dining. Now, in the settled room, you can follow its pattern. A measured throb moves through the framework, pauses for the briefest instant, and comes again. From farther aft arrives the muted rhythm of a propeller turning in the cool upper air. The machinery is quiet only in a relative sense. No early petrol engine is truly silent. Metal parts move rapidly against one another. Valves open and close. Gears meet, shafts turn, and propeller blades press continuously upon the air. The engines are some distance from the passenger saloon, however, and their regular sound has none of the sharp disorder of a busy street or crowded railway platform. It is patterned and predictable, like a slow mechanical heartbeat carried through the vessel. A steward pauses beside your chair and notices that you are listening. The engineer has settled her at a comfortable rate, he says in a low voice. When you ask how the engines are arranged, he offers to accompany you as far as an observation threshold near one of the machinery gondolas. Passengers do not wander alone among the working parts of the ship. The mechanical passages belong to trained members of the crew, who know where to place each hand and foot. Yet, from a safe doorway behind a polished rail, you may see enough to understand the source of that patient rhythm. You follow the steward along a short corridor. The carpet gives way to a firmer floor, and the decorative paneling becomes plainer. Shaded electric lamps illuminate the way. On an airship filled with lifting gas, light and heat must be carefully managed. Electrical lighting offers a controlled alternative to open flames, and the wires, switches, and lamps are regularly inspected. The engines and their fuel are also kept apart from the hydrogen cells above. Early rigid airship engines were commonly housed in gondolas beneath the main hull. Separation could not remove every concern, but careful arrangement, strict rules, and constant attention made the whole system more orderly. In this imagined vessel of 1900, the working spaces have been planned so that heat, fuel, and electrical fittings remain closely supervised. At the doorway, the steward introduces you to Mr. Bell, one of the watch engineers. His sleeves are neatly fastened above the wrist, and his dark working coat bears only the slightest mark of oil near one cuff. He speaks without raising his voice, timing his words to fall between the stronger beats of the machinery. Beyond the rail stands a compact petrol engine, mounted securely within its frame. Beneath a shaded lamp, rods and fittings move in an even sequence. Small beads of clean machine oil shine along a lubricating point. A leather belt passes smoothly around its wheel, while farther on, guarded gearing carries motion toward a long shaft. Warm metal, folded cotton waste for wiping parts, and well-oiled mechanisms give the compartment its particular working character. The air here is warmer than in the saloon, though the passenger rooms remain separated from engine fumes. There is no modern soundproofing, nor any perfect isolation. Instead, distance, sturdy partitions, and careful ventilation soften the engine's presence before its vibration reaches the chairs and tables. Mr. Bell points first to the engine, and then toward the guarded shaft. The engine turns quickly, he explains, but the propeller must be given the motion suited to it. The gearing helps us manage that. Power passes from the engine through shafts and gears until it reaches the propeller outside. Every stage must remain properly aligned. If a shaft sits slightly out of line, its bearings may grow warmer, or its vibration may change. For this reason, an engineer listens as carefully as a musician listening to an instrument. A familiar engine has its own ordinary note. The smallest alteration in that note may tell an attentive keeper where an adjustment is needed. Mr. Bell glances at a gauge. Then he rests 2 fingers briefly against the housing near a bearing. It is a practiced touch, careful and light, used to judge the warmth of the metal. He checks the oil feed and studies the rhythm of a moving rod. Nearby, another crewman records a figure in a small logbook. The engineers monitor many simple but essential things. They note how much petrol remains in the tanks and how evenly it is being supplied. They make certain that oil reaches the surfaces that rub and turn, reducing friction and wear. They observe the cooling water, which carries excess heat away from the engine. They watch bearing temperatures, shaft alignment, engine speed, and vibration. None of these duties is performed once and then forgotten. Early airship power arrangements are mechanically complex and require frequent attention. The same checks return in a calm sequence: fuel, oil, water, bearing, speed, alignment, vibration. Then, after an interval, the sequence begins again. This need for attention is why the engineering watch remains occupied even when the airship seems to proceed without effort. The machinery may be working well, but it is not perfectly reliable by modern standards. Its good order comes partly from thoughtful design and partly from human care. A gauge is read at the proper moment. A drop of oil is supplied. A fastening is checked. A slight change in vibration is noticed and understood. At the end of the 19th century, light internal combustion engines offered new possibilities for powered flight. Steam engines had moved ships and trains with great success, but a steam plant required a boiler, water, fuel, and heavy supporting equipment. Weight that could be carried readily by a locomotive or steamship was far more difficult to lift into the air. Petrol engines could provide useful power at a lower weight. They were still imperfect and mechanically demanding, yet by 1900 they were making large-powered airships more practical than steam power. The experimental rigid airship known as LZ-1, built by Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, used 2 small Daimler internal combustion engines. It rose over Lake Constance in that same year, revealing both the promise of the rigid airship and the many refinements still to come. The vessel carrying you belongs to a gently imagined branch of that history. Its passenger saloon and long-distance comforts are more advanced than those of the earliest experimental craft. Such generous airborne travel would become more characteristic of the early 20th century than of the Victorian age itself. Yet the engine before you belongs to the turn of the century. It is compact, petrol-driven, intricate, and dependent upon watchful hands. Above the gondola stretches the great framework of the hull. Within it, the gas cells provide lift, while the rigid structure preserves the airship's long and graceful shape. In this imagined design, a narrow keel passage runs along the lower interior, allowing trained crew members to reach parts of the structure, along with fuel, ballast, cargo, and crew spaces. Later rigid airships would have internal walkways serving such purposes. Here it is a speculative and advanced feature. Passengers do not enter that passage. There is no need to do so. The crew members assigned to it understand its beams, wires, valves, and narrow routes. From your secure place at the threshold, it is enough to know that the ship contains not only elegant rooms, but also a hidden geography of useful spaces. Every polished panel in the saloon is supported by a larger world of framework, machinery, and routine. For a little while, you simply listen. Near at hand, the engine has many individual sounds. There is the quick motion of a rod, the smooth turning of a belt, and the low meeting of gear teeth within their housing. There is the soft passage of oil through a narrow feed, and the steady movement of cooling water. Beyond them all lies the broader rhythm of the propeller, gathering each smaller sound into one repeated pulse. Mr. Bell turns a control by a small degree. At first the change is difficult for an untrained ear to notice. Then the propeller rhythm begins to soften. The engine continues to work but at a lower setting, and the deep pulse beneath your feet becomes gentler. "We need not hurry," he says. "The airship has entered a region of calm air, and the navigator has requested a modest pace." The engine speed is reduced. The propellers turn less forcefully, and the vessel continues with quiet purpose. Unlike a balloon, which travels chiefly where the wind carries it, a dirigible can be steered and driven. Its engines give it motion through the surrounding air, though every sensible navigator continues to respect the movement of the atmosphere. Power and patience work together. The engines provide direction, while the crew chooses a measured course. You thank Mr. Bell and return with the steward along the softly illuminated corridor. With each step toward the saloon, the separate clicks, turns, and pulses blend once more into a single distant throb. The working warmth recedes. The clean scent of machine oil gives way to beeswax, wool, and the last trace of tea. Back in the passenger room, the machinery no longer seems mysterious. Its rhythm speaks of shafts turning in alignment, cooling water circulating, oil moving through narrow feeds, and engineers reading gauges beneath shaded electric lamps. Quiet does not mean silent. Here, quiet means regular, balanced, and carefully watched over. You settle again beside the window and rest one hand upon the wooden arm of the chair. The vibration within it is softer now. Each pulse passes through the framework, reaches the polished wood, and fades. Then another follows, familiar and unhurried. Beyond the glass, evening lies gently across the world below. The engineer's measured setting carries the airship onward, without haste. At this modest pace, the landscape has time to reveal itself. Fields approach and pass beneath the hull. A canal reflects a narrow ribbon of sky. Parallel railway lines run toward a quiet cluster of roofs. The propellers continue their softened beat as you turn fully toward the view. The machinery remains behind the walls, warm, intricate, and faithfully attended. Outside, the broad land opens into long, observable lines. Fields, canals, roads, and railways drift slowly beneath the ship, each one waiting to be followed by the eye. Chapter 8. Landscapes Below. The broad land opens beneath the airship in long, observable lines, each moving slowly below the polished window frame. From your chair in the passenger room, you can still feel the measured throb of the engines, softened by walls, carpets, and distance. It is no longer merely a mechanical sound. Now it seems to provide a steady rhythm for the passing countryside. A field enters the view, remains for a while, and slips beneath the hull. Then comes another, bordered by a hedge, followed by an orchard whose trees stand in orderly rows. Nothing vanishes too quickly to be noticed. At this gentle pace, the landscape has time to unfold. From this modest altitude, the pattern of the farms becomes clear, without losing its human scale. Some fields are rectangular, their boundaries drawn with practical straightness. Others follow older, irregular shapes, bending around low hills, lanes, and streams. The hedgerows resemble dark green stitching laid across a broad quilt of earth. They separate pasture from meadow and divide one field from the next. Here and there, mature trees rise from the hedges, wider and taller than the shrubs around them. Each casts a long evening shadow across the grass. In one pasture, sheep appear as small, pale marks scattered across the green. A few remain gathered near a date, while others form a loose trail across the field. From this distance, their movements seem almost too slight to see. They belong quietly to the landscape, as natural to the pasture as the hedges and trees surrounding it. In a neighboring field, cut hay has been gathered into rounded stacks. Their careful shapes speak of long hours of work. The grass has been cut, dried, turned, and carried in from the meadow. Seen from above, The haystacks look small and orderly, though each one represents patient labor on the ground. An orchard passes beneath you next. The trees are planted at regular intervals, leaving narrow lanes between their branches. From the ground, an orchard may feel enclosed and leafy, its paths disappearing after only a short distance. From here, its full arrangement can be seen at once. There is the boundary hedge, the small shed beside it, and the lane leading toward a farmhouse with pale walls and a dark roof. A wisp of smoke rises from the farmhouse chimney. It climbs through the still air, growing thinner as it rises, until it can no longer be distinguished from the evening haze. The airship does not need to follow the lanes below. It does not turn at every crossroads, nor does it wind around each gentle hill. Instead, it travels along an invisible route, chosen by the navigator, adjusted for the wind, and marked upon the charts. This directness is one of the airship's unusual qualities. A carriage must take the road, a train must remain upon its rails, a canal barge goes wherever the waterway has been cut. Guided by rudders and driven by propellers, may cross these older routes almost as easily as it crosses the open fields between them. Soon a canal comes into view. It is dark and smooth, reflecting a narrow ribbon of sky. Its course is straighter than that of a natural stream, though it bends where the land requires it. Along one bank runs the towpath, a pale line beside the darker water. It passes beneath trees and continues toward a stone bridge. A barge rests near a lock. Its long, low shape lies almost motionless upon the water. Beside it, the lock gates divide one level of the canal from another. A narrow chamber, the gates, the waiting barge, and the lock keeper's cottage form a small and orderly arrangement. From above, the purpose of the place is easy to understand. The barge enters the chamber. Water raises or lowers it to the next level. Then the opposite gates are opened, and the journey continues. It is a gradual process, suited to the steady nature of canal travel. The airship moves onward, and the stone bridge passes behind. For a time, the canal, towpath, and barge remain visible through another window, becoming steadily smaller. The barge travels with a patience suited to the water. The airship is faster, yet speed does not seem to be its chief character. Its distinction lies in spacious movement. It crosses fields, waterways, and low ridges without being confined to the narrow course of any single route. A railway now approaches from the south. At first it appears as two fine parallel lines catching the last light. The rails run beside an embankment and then divide near a junction. Close to the meeting track stands a signal box, a compact building with many windows. Beyond it, a steam train travels along the farther line. Its locomotive draws a dark plume behind it, though the smoke soon spreads and becomes pale. The carriages follow in a neat procession, their roofs holding a muted gleam. For a little while, the train and airship move in roughly the same direction. The train appears swift because the ground is close beneath its wheels. Telegraph poles pass in quick succession, and the hedges seem to hurry backwards. From your higher position, motion feels gentler. The view is broader, and each object takes longer to cross it. The railway curves toward a station where lamps are beginning to glow beneath the platform canopy. A few figures wait with trunks and parcels. Porters move luggage upon low trolleys, while the station clock looks out over the scene. Even from the air, the different parts of the station can be read. There is the main building, the platform, the goods siding, and the road beyond. The train slows as it approaches. A small cloud of steam spreads white around the locomotive, then dissolves into the cooler air. Beyond the station, clustered roofs announce the edge of a town. At first there are scattered cottages with gardens behind them. Then the streets draw closer together. Rows of brick houses follow the roads, and taller buildings rise among them. A church tower stands above the roofs, its stonework warmed by the fading light. It has long served as a landmark for travelers on the ground. From the air it becomes part of a wider pattern, joined by the station roof, the clustered streets, and several factory chimneys near the river. The chimneys release long trails of smoke into the evening. Below them are brick buildings, rows of windows, enclosed yards, and dark roofs. From the passenger room the town appears quiet and geometric. The many separate structures come together as a single arrangement of streets, squares, workshops, houses, and public buildings. No one detail holds the view for long, yet nothing is taken away abruptly. The airship allows the town to unfold gradually. You can see where the railway enters, where a main road crosses the river, and where the closely packed roofs loosen again into gardens and fields. Streets that may seem complicated at ground level become more understandable from above. They branch from open spaces, bend around older boundaries, and gather near bridges. The town is not separate from the countryside. It is joined to it by roads, rails, canals, rivers, and footpaths. Beyond the town, the river is wider than the canal and less obedient to straight lines. It winds through low meadows, reflecting silver wherever the sky remains bright. Small islands divide the water. Trees lean over the banks, and a bridge carries a road from one side to the other. The difference between river and canal is clear from this height. The canal resembles a dark ribbon laid carefully across the land. The river follows its own winding course, bending through meadows and around gentle slopes. The airship crosses both without needing a bridge or a ford, leaving the water to continue quietly beneath it. Farther away, the railway and river approach one another, then separate again. The railway follows its firm parallel course. The river curls in broad loops. Between them lie pastures, orchards, narrow lanes, and occasional farm buildings. The airship has no rails and meets no hill in quite the same manner as a train. It responds instead to wind, balance, lift, and the captain's chosen height. Its freedom is real, though it is always guided by careful navigation and the steady attention of the crew. The last direct sunlight now rests upon the highest roofs, the church tower, and a few isolated trees. In the valleys, the colors deepen toward blue and gray. Lamps appear one by one. One glows beside a canal lock. Another shines from a signal box. More gather along the station platform and in the windows of farms preparing for evening. Each light marks a small center of ordinary life. Meals are being served. Animals are being tended. Luggage is being carried. Barges rest by the towpath, and trains continue toward their next stations. The airship passes above these routines without disturbing them, carrying its own small household through the gathering dusk. You remain beside the glass as open farmland returns. The engine throb is steady behind you. The great fabric covering remains taut above, while the lamps within the passenger room cast a mild glow upon brass fittings and polished wood. Below, the hedgerows once again resemble stitching. Rectangular fields lie beside older, irregular ones. A final train carries its glowing windows into the distance. The canal keeps its dark, straightened line, while the river holds a fading trace of the sky. Road, rail, canal, and river settle into the broad design of the land. Each route has its own pace and purpose. The train follows the shining rails. The barge keeps to the quiet water. Carts and carriages remain upon the roads. Above them all, the airship proceeds without haste, giving every line time to appear, to be understood, and gently to recede. The town is behind you now, though its scattered lights remain visible for a little longer. Ahead, the countryside grows softer in the deepening evening. Fields merge into one another at their distant edges. Trees become dark shapes. The river glimmers once, then turns away. Inside, the regular vibration continues through the wooden arm of your chair. It is familiar now, balanced, and carefully watched over. Beyond the window, the last outlines of farms, bridges, tracks, and waterways drift beneath the hull. The airship carries on through the spacious upper air. Below lies the patient world of ordinary journeys, each following its road, rail, towpath, or winding bank. Here above them, your own journey remains calm and direct, held between the steady engines and the slowly darkening sky.